Welcome to Nexus. I'm Wanda Allen Abraha, the Director of the Human Relations Department. We are excited to have the opportunity to bring you today's program. The Human Relations Department enforces and encourages fair treatment and equal rights for the citizens of the City of Winston-Salem. The Human Relations Department has three key areas of responsibility. They are investigating housing discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, disability, family status, and gender, mediating landlord-tenant complaints, and conducting cultural diversity education and inclusion training and outreach. This television program is a part of our education and outreach efforts. All Nexus television programs feature community partners. During this episode, we will focus on April as National Fair Housing Month. Our guests today are Lou Baldwin, President of the Winston-Salem Regional Association of Realtors, and Robert Leake, a Human Relations Commissioner and the Chair of the New Horizons Fair Housing Committee. Now let's join Adolfo Briceño of our staff, who will interview today's guests.
Well, thank you very much, Wanda. And thank you to all of you for being with us in another edition of Nexus. Now, our guest tonight, our first guest tonight is Mr. Lou Baldwin. Thank you, Mr. Baldwin, for being with us.
Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin is owner and president of Baldwin Properties. He is the president of the local chapter of the Winston-Salem Realtors Association, and he is also president of Habitat for Humanity. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you have, you were telling me that this is the 100 year, right, of the Winston-Salem Realtors Association.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about the mission of the Realtors Association
Absolutely.
here in the city.
So yes, this is our 100th year. We were founded in 1917 by people who were professionals in real estate but didn't have their own trade organization or association in this community. So they got together 100 years ago and formed what was at that time the Winston-Salem Board of Realtors. And our mission, we're a trade organization, and we unite professionals in real estate, and our goal is to be the leading provider of resources for them, but also to be an advocate in the community for things that are important to real estate, such as fair housing, affordability of housing, private property rights, and to hopefully be an integral part of the Winston-Salem community.
Look at that. How has it evolved? I mean, the issues I know you've been in business for many, many years. What has been the evolution, a little bit of what a realtor did back in the day and what it does now? Has it changed?
Absolutely, it has. So over 100 years, we've seen a lot during that
just
time.
imagine.
Certainly people feel or think about economic cycles when they think about real estate. We're certainly an industry that's very affected by that. Everything the country's been through in 100 years. Wars and different presidents and different times and whatnot. And so we feel good that we've been able to be here for our members and to continue to grow. The Winston-Salem region has grown, and that we feel like we've been a part of that as we've helped with real estate development and housing and commercial real estate and property management and all those areas in our community.
Right. Mr. Baldwin, tell us a little bit about when it comes to fair housing, what kind of fair housing initiatives can the public or is the Winston-Salem Realtors Association doing when it comes to fair housing?
Absolutely. We consider ourselves to be very involved in fair housing. A lot of it starts with our code of ethics. One of the things when you become a realtor, as opposed to someone who is just licensed in real estate. So everyone with a real estate license is not a member of the professional organization. But if you want to be a member of our professional organization, you subscribe to our code of ethics. And one of the key tenets of our code of ethics is fair housing. And that's always been there. And we really consider it to go above and beyond what's required in the law. For example, we added to our code of ethics a number of years ago gender and sexual orientation and some things that weren't in the fair housing law at that time. So our members are committed to always acting in the best interest of fair housing when they promote real estate. We do a lot of fair housing education. So when you become a member of our association, you take an orientation course, and one of the key aspects of the orientation course is always fair housing training. During the course of the year, we work a lot of fair housing education in for our members, and we have over 1,500 members now, so this is a good number of people receiving this. But through our local newsletter, state newsletters, and national newsletters and magazines, they always have fair housing advice, fair housing Q&A for our members and that type of thing.
I see.
As you're familiar with, one of the key things that we do each year is serve as a sponsor for the Fair Housing Luncheon to kick off Fair Housing Month coming up in April. And we're looking forward again this year to being a sponsor of that and participating in the Fair Housing Summit.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Baldwin. For those in the public that do not know, the Human Relations Department also enforces the Fair Housing Act, and there's no way that the department could do it only on the enforcement side. We also need the participation, the willing participation of realtors and all the people involved in housing, so they can also be, in a way, the enforcers or the compliers of the law.
Absolutely.
So now, you were telling us a little bit of the partnership with the Human Relations Department. Can you please elaborate a little bit on those partnerships when it comes to the Fair Housing Month?
Sure, absolutely. So the kickoff this year, I believe, will be April 6th.
It's April, yes.
And it's going to be held at a Legacy Federal Credit Union. And the realtors will serve as the lead sponsor for that event and collaborating and teaming with y'all. And I think we've got some exciting speakers lined up. I'm pretty sure Mayor Joines will be there with us. Folks from the Center for Home Ownership, folks from Habitat for Humanity and others, all talking about fair housing. I think you'll have some testimony type discussion about fair housing there, but it'll be a great opportunity for folks who collaborate to make sure fair housing is valued and enforced and promoted in this community together. And then I know that y'all are the lead with the summit that'll be later in the month, and that we're certainly looking forward to being involved in as well. Something new this year that we're doing as part of our 100th anniversary celebration is we're going to, and I'm not sure if I've told you this or not, that's kind of an announcement, but we're going to have billboards up promoting Fair Housing Month.
Awesome,
and
wonderful.
It'll be tied in with the 100th anniversary of the Winston-Salem Regional Association of Realtors. Some of our member firms are going to be sponsors of the billboards during the course of the month too, but we'll be promoting Fair Housing Month on some large electronic billboards like on Stratford Road and other locations during the month of April as well.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Mr. I had no idea, but I think it's just right to, I mean, I think talking about fair housing is right any moment in time. I mean, It was important, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. It is still important now. Now, and just to wrap up the conversation, Mr. Baldwin, what do you see, is there a fair housing issue that you believe is going to be important or will have, I don't know, some preponderance in the future?
I think certainly housing affordability can be a fair housing issue, and that's something our association at all levels, local, state, and national, it's really at the top of our list. We have a large advocacy organization. We're very good at grassroots advocacy, at going to Raleigh, at going to Washington, talking about the issues, what drives up the cost of housing and makes it less affordable for first-time home buyers or for folks who have not previously been able to afford a home. And I think that really goes hand in hand with fair housing because the most fair kind of housing is if it's accessible and if people in our community can afford it. And that's something that our organization and the Association of Realtors at all levels very involved in, collaborating in this community with folks like Habitat for Humanity, Center for Home Ownership, and others to keep housing affordable.
That's truly an important issue, and I think part of the, and that's part of the problem that sometimes we can see. Fortunately, I don't think much in Winston, but in other cities, the affordability issue, it can be something really difficult to tackle. But anyway, I'm very glad that as a Realtor Association, you guys are trying to work on that issue.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Lou Baldwin. This was Mr. Lou Baldwin. He's owner and president of Baldwin Properties, president of the Winston-Salem Realtors Association, and also president of Habitat for Humanity. Thank you for your time, Mr. Baldwin. And we will be back with the second half of Nexus.
I was a college student when the Winston-Salem Police Department offered me the opportunity to be employed as a cadet. While I was a cadet, I was able to explore different facets of the police department. Part of that was doing ride-alongs. As soon as I did that, I was pretty much hooked. I knew I wanted to be a police officer. I think just the satisfaction of the job, from apprehending violent criminals to helping families in need, acts of random kindness that go unnoticed by the general public or those that are not involved. When I was in field training, my field training coach and I went to a call for service. It was a frigid day. We handled the incident, and then immediately after went to a box store, purchased a space heater, went back to the house and provided that family with some much needed warmth for that day. It's those acts that go unnoticed by everybody except those that are involved. I'm Sergeant Manny Gomez, and I'm a Winston-Salem police officer.
What is it you want to know?
Why do I keep having glimpses of past lives?
I see you have had many previous lives, and you are destined for many more.
Give your plastic bags new lives. Recycle them at the nearest participating grocery store, or bring your own bags. Recycling, it's in the bag. A message from the Winston-Salem Sustainability Office.
Well, welcome back to Nexus. In this segment, we will have Robert Leake. Thank you, Robert, for being with us.
Thank you.
Mr. Robert Leake is Winston-Salem, the City of Winston-Salem Human Relations Commissioner, and he's also very involved with the new Horizons Fair Housing Committee.
Correct.
And that's a little bit of the conversation that we're going to have today. Before we jump into the subject, Robert, tell us a little bit what you do at Neighborhood for Better Neighborhoods and how that ties up with Human Relations Commission.
Yes. Well, thank you this morning for having me, Adolfo. Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods, an organization, has been around for 28 years here in Winston-Salem. The organization provides technical assistance to neighborhoods, grants opportunities, as well as trainings to neighborhoods across the city. My job, I am the director of the grassroots grant making, as well as physical sponsorship. But how it ties into the fair housing subject line of for the city, we believe that residents lead in their communities. We believe residents are always the center at the table. We believe residents, they have the solutions and they have the answers because they live in the neighborhood. With that, we see a lot of times in neighborhoods that there are houses that are uninhabitable to live in, or there are houses that are boarded up, or there are code enforcements that neighbors speak about their neighborhood association meetings and et cetera. With that, those concerns, they come back to our office, and we tied into with the city of Winston-Salem. We talked to some of the city inspectors and with some of our council members about how to improve the neighborhoods in Winston-Salem.
I see. Well, it's important always to have a very committed and involved citizenry in the city of Winston-Salem. Now, and when it comes to the for those in the public that don't know, fair housing, I mean, April is Fair Housing Month, which is coming up. Tell us a little bit what the new Fair Housing Committee has been doing with this coming up summit of affordable and fair housing.
Correct, yes. The Fair Housing Committee is comprised of 8 members, 8 committee members, ranges from the Office of HUD, Habitat for Humanity, the City of Winston-Salem, the county, it also, as well myself, Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods, as well some stakeholders in the city. We just came off of a sabbatical year last year, so we came back in January. So our committee is run from January to April, and we come together and we come up with ideas to help improve the Fair Housing Conference, which will be held in April this year. We come up with ideas that we know that residents are speaking about and talking about in the community. This year, fair housing, I know you're going to talk about that later on, is going to be a unique fair housing because of the climate of things going on in our, it's not just our city, but our country. So we, throughout the year, we were able to hear concerns from residents, hear concerns from different pockets of constituents in different wards and districts in Winston-Salem, and now we're convening back, and we're going to lined up our guest speakers and lined up our panelists to those as well resources in the room that will be able to help give information to the participants going to attend the conference, and so they'll be able to take what they learned from the conference and take it back to their neighborhoods.
What are the, Robert, you are in the neighborhoods and probably talking to people, what are their concerns when it comes to fair housing and affordability in the city?
Well, the concerns, number one, the concern that I always hear is homeless here in Winston-Salem. I know we have Maryland Jones, he just rolled out his thoughtful poverty force initiative, which was a great poverty task initiative. Also, I hear about the veterans that who are homeless in our city. And if you go on deeper down to the southeast and the east side of Winston-Salem, we hear about uninhabitable properties that are which are violated with code enforcement. Well, houses that are boarded up in the neighborhoods, and residents want to see blight residential properties in their community, and that's one reason why Habitat is a committee member on our board, because with that, maybe Habitat could come in and hear some of the concerns that we're talking about on our committee level, and maybe that could be a potential site that where Habitat could build in the future. Or from the city of Winston-Salem, we have an employee who's on the committee, and she can hear the concerns, and she can also report back to her office at the Neighborhood Housing Service Department. Well, it's called Community Business Development now. Yes. Community Business Development Department. But I hear those concerns. All neighborhoods are different. If you go on to the west side of Winston-Salem, you hear more about a house that may have been vacant for years, but on the outside, the house still looks up to par. So all neighborhoods are different, but we all have the same problems, but we just live in different neighborhoods.
I see. Yeah. And just to wrap up the conversation, Robert, in the Fair Housing Summit, what kind of issues are going to be discussed in there?
Well, the issues are going to be be discussed. The first thing would be homeless, because that's been the first thing we talked about on the committee level. Veteran homeless as well. Loans, home loans, the turn program that the city has rolled out, so residents can get involved with that and help improve their neighborhood. Also, we're going to talk about ways that neighborhood associations can also participate in the turn program to also talk to their landlords, with the landlords who has homes in their community, to help them buy into the program. Also, we're going to talk about, we're going to hear a guest speaker this year, and they're going to talk about ways to how to improve our communities through the fair housing with the rules and policies. So really, it's really going to be more of being in power as well as gaining knowledge at the conference this year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time, Robert.
Yes.
And just a reminder for the public, the Fair and Affordable Fair Housing Summit is in April, but it is it's just for fair housing professionals and organizations that have to do with fair housing. Thank you again, Robert, for being with us.
Thank you.
And we'll now go with the Nexus Challenge and Jamie.
I'm Jamie Waldeck, and this is the Nexus Challenge, where we test your knowledge about fair housing laws. In honor of Fair Housing Month during April, this special edition of the Nexus Challenge will focus on explaining how the Fair Housing Act is structured. Let's start with a question. Which of the following is not a protected class under the Fair Housing Law? Is it A, race, B, family status, C, credit standing, or D, religion? The answer is C, credit standing. Individuals can be denied housing if they do not meet a housing provider or lender's credit requirements. However, they cannot be denied housing on the basis of their race, family status, or religion. These are 3 of the 7 personal characteristics, also referred to as protected classes, that a landlord may not use as a basis for denying housing to an individual. The other 4 characteristics are color, gender, national origin, and disability. Let's go into more detail on what these terms mean. Race and color. These are two separate but closely related characteristics. Race is self-explanatory. Color refers to a person's physical appearance. For example, although two people are both African American, there might be discrimination because one has lighter or darker skin color. National origin. This is based on whether applicants or their families come from another country. Discrimination based on national origin means treating people differently because of their ancestry, ethnicity, birthplace, culture, or language. Religion. This refers to members of a particular faith or belief system and may also cover anyone based on their spiritual beliefs, even if he isn't affiliated with a particular religious group. Sex. This refers to treating people differently because of their gender and bans sexual harassment against both women and men. Disability. This refers to a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. However, individuals who currently use illegal drugs or pose a direct threat to the health and safety of others are not considered disabled under the Fair Housing Act. Family status. This refers to households with one or more children who are under 18 years of age, whether living with a parent, legal guardian, or anyone else with written permission. It also applies to pregnant women and anyone in the process of securing legal custody of a minor child, such as a foster or adoptive parent. And that's this month's Nexus Challenge. I'm Jamie Waldeck. Now let's go back to Wanda.
Thank you, Jamie. Before we go, here's a look at some upcoming events. We hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you for watching Nexus. I'm Wanda Allen Abraha. See you next time.